Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning and welcome back. It's week 2 on the Delta Flyer build, and hopefully the theme wasn't as loud on the second half or on this week's video as it was on last week's. It's that cymbal crash that really wakes you up. But anyway, we're getting on to the shell, and that means lighting. That means lighting the nacelles and the impulse engines and the other details and the running lights. And Keith, in his file, has included holes for 3mm bulbs, LED bulbs, strategically placed along where you would want to put your lighting. And it'll surprise absolutely no one to know that I will not be using them, because I'm just a contrary person like that. Here is what they look like. This actually works pretty darn good for this impulse light. They do get a bit sourcey, and that's only because when you are sticking the light out through these holes, that magnifies the isolation of those holes. What I am going to prefer to do is to actually put the bulb in the clear piece itself before I attach it, or as I am attaching it. These little tiny nano LEDs, I'm getting ahead of myself here. These tiny, let me clean these up. The tiny nano LEDs can go anywhere. They are only limited by the size of the bulb. And so what I'm going to do is pop this one actually inside. The nice thing about these resin printed pieces is that they've been hollowed. They're hollow inside. So if let me see if I can find which one I've got here. I'm going to hook it up to the power. There you go. I can actually take this bulb, lock, stock, and barrel, and just push it inside the piece, which will do a better job of lighting up the entire interior than just if you had an isolated bulb sticking at one spot. Now the thing is, I will have to mask off the vents, the actual part that gets the light, from the rest of the kit, or the rest of the part, but that's no big deal. That's kind of what I do for a living. So when it is glued in place, it looks something like this. Now, he did the same for the front. Come on, the front Bassard collectors. I'm trying to fish this through as I speak. Okay, so there's the Bassard collector light, but there are no indents, and this is too thin of a piece to be hollowed. So I'm going to have to maybe make a little dimple in the piece here with a Dremel bit, so that when I put it in here, it'll actually be embedded into the piece. Now, of course, the normal disclaimer goes that when you are looking at it on camera, it has a tendency to make it more sourcey and isolated than it is in real life. It is still noticeable, but the light does spread out a bit. Let me see what it looks like if I don't know if I need to spend that many bulbs on it. The temptation would be to put, a whole bunch of bulbs in here, but I don't know. I don't know if that effect would be worth it. Plus, I got to look at how many bulbs I have on hand. That's the real kicker. Let's see. I've got 4 chip LEDs, and I've got, looks like 3. Yeah, I'm down to limited numbers. If I have to order some, then that's going to delay a lot of stuff. So we'll have to see how I apportion them out. I've got more than enough blue LEDs. I'm not worried about that. It's the red ones that are causing me strife. So we'll figure this out, and we will progress from there. Now, once the lighting is all handled inside of these wings, it's a question of popping the interior in and then sealing it up. I did go ahead and make these holes in the landing gear bay so that I can run the wiring up through to the inside. And some of this week will be spent on making a nice custom base for this kit, because I'll have the time, I think. I don't think it's going to take too much. I got my fingers, toes, and eyes crossed that it's going to take too much time to close all this up. Getting the nice, clean white finish on it is going to be an interesting challenge. So we'll see how that goes. But okay, continuing work on lighting up the nacelles here. I'm thinking one segment of blue strip LED. It's just one inch of it. Wedged down in here would be fine. I think that's lighting it up nice and evenly. Might have to do some light blocking on the inside, but then again, I haven't painted anything on the outside of it yet, so yeah, I think that's going to work nicely. Alrighty, continuing work on getting some of these lights placed, and where we're running into difficulties is the fact that as you get closer down into this edge, everything becomes a little bit more difficult to work into the tiny space that you've got left in there. Now, I've come up with a little idea I think is going to work for these running lights. They are top and bottom on both sides. Of course, these are your navs, and come up with a little way to put a bulb into a slight piece of tubing here. Well, you can see that is an angled piece of styrene tube that I can kind of push down into that wing shape that will allow me to get a light top and bottom by essentially pushing these resin pieces into this tubed off area and let them act as light pipes or very fat fiber optics. Like I said, it's difficult to work down into these pinched off areas. Oh, get in there, heaven's sake. There we go. That way they're just kind of loosely fitting. I don't have to worry about trying to get a light exactly over the bulb. I can make a just a tubed off area. So I think that's going to work. And I'm happy with the blue LED that I'm going to use on the inside of the engine, so that's going to work. This has been a conceptual day, if nothing else. I have been testing out theories and ideas, and now that I have got them right where I want them, I think I can go ahead and implement some of these things. Good morning, welcome back. It is Tuesday. We are continuing work on the Delta Flyer lighting for the impulse and the warp engines. Working on the impulse engines here on the back. And you know, I've had the great honor of knowing several people who have designed their own kits and have engineered kits and brought them into the world. And they've all had the same. They've all had one trait in common, and it's something that I take a perverse delight in, but you know, I don't mean it to be mean. But I don't build it the way they expect it to be built. And I often wonder, Keith, as you're watching this, you've given me this wonderful house and a beautiful front door, and I'm deciding I would rather come in the house through the window. At some point, you just have to let go and let people and know that people are going to take the model off and build it in their own way, and you just have to release yourself from that. You can see what I've done to the front of the warp engines, something similar, although there were no holes cut in this. I drilled out little pockets for the SM LEDs to lay in there, and then I can run them through the holes into the sides and down. So that's kind of what I'm working on today. Get the parts glued up and then glued to the shell today. And there's one last piece, and that is, or one last thing I was working on, and that is how to do the marker lights, the nav lights. I'm not going to try to make them blink or strobe or do anything fancy, but there is a very it gets very tight in that area after a while because of the space that you've got left. And to do that, I think what I needed to do was to make a column out of a little bit of clear or a little bit of styrene tube that I can wedge in there, and then poke the indicators in and let them act as if they were fiber optics going into a bundle. Okay, I was just finalizing my lighting for the exterior here, and it struck me that there was something missing, and that was I needed to add some green board lighting. It's not specifically called out in any instructions, and there are no clear pieces to make it any easier, but what I'm going to do is take advantage of the thin-walled material, and here's your typical green tiny bulb, and just push it up against the side of the kit there and let the light leak take care of it. There's a bit here and there's a bit here, and we're going to see how tough that's going to be to isolate. For the ones up here, I'm going to have to actually add them to the interior tub piece, because the tub piece presses up against that area and I won't be able to get in behind it. So if I make it part of the tub and I wire it into all of the rest of what's going on there right about at that point, then when I push it in place, it'll actually push up against the hull and light that area appropriately. And then we'll just be left with this little guy down here in the wing, and how easy that's going to be to isolate, we'll have to see. But then there's that, and then of course this piece here, which is the one that is going to be carved out on both sides and replaced with this this aftermarket printed piece that I printed. That's going to be easy for me to light up from behind and then just scratch off. The whole thing doesn't glow green like this, but I can put a light behind it, paint as light block it, and then just scratch off a nice little texture pattern there to make it look like board lighting. And that should be the extent of it. Okay, so I've got the little light tube glued in there. Wasn't easy, wasn't fun, but it's done. There's your rhyme for the day. And you can see how it shines through there. Now I don't have the inserts in. That's these guys right here. Those are the inserts. And you can see where it's spilling out into the engine compartment. So after a bit, I will probably slather some JB weld or maybe some tulip around that to block that from spilling where it don't need to spill. And we'll go from there. A little bit more epoxy to kind of cement that LED where it's supposed to go would be nice, but this is god awfully difficult to get into. It's the wire tension on the SM LEDs actually weighs more than the bulb itself, so it kind of tells you where the tension is going to be. Okay, well, all I need to do is make sure I've got a clear path through that tube and out the bottom, so that I don't block that or no epoxy settles in there. Okay, so I have got the hole cut out. The piece has been sanded away. Had to do it carefully because this material likes to shatter rather than to carve. But you can see what it looks like once we've got this hole cut out, and the piece that I have printed will go back on top of it like that. But I think what could serve us best right now would be to go ahead. I had to find a couple of bare wires here so that I can add the 3 or add the two green lights here. And then now that I've got this hole chopped out, I could put the tub inside it, and that'll show me this whole area right here. It's beautiful access to the top there, so I can go ahead and put the green lights in here that I need. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Okay, I'm kind of condensing all of the lighting for the right hand side of the ship, and now that blue light that you're seeing is not a blue light. That's spill from the green marker light. I don't have the blue light in yet, but it does show me exactly how much light blocking I need to put around that green post inside there. See what I'm saying? That green post, that's the green post I need to block. But you see the underneath all the tape, of course. So let's get that. Let me see. If I go ahead and put the blue light in, which is going to be basically just a segment of blue strip tape. Yeah, if I put a segment of that in there, then I should be able to block this all up. Okay, welcome back. It is Wednesday, and I need to take advantage of a rare quiet moment because I've got another huge honkin' order that I'm processing today, and that's going to muddy up the audio on the background. So let's go ahead and catch you up, do it real quick, and then I will scamper off and do my due. Here's where we're at. We have the central tub ready to go in, except I want to put 3 green lights on it. I want to put a green light here, and then I want to put a longer strip right there, and that's going to light up the Borg details on the back of the it's going to light up these side ones and then this area right in here on both sides. Now overnight, since you saw this last, all of the JB weld that I put into it last night has solidified and turned rock solid, so we are ready to push the wiring out of the way. And then what will happen is I can push the side of the tub into here, get it all lined up, get it all epoxied in and all of that, because I'm only going to be able to do this really on one side as far as doing all the reinforcing epoxying, because I won't be able to do that on the other side. I'll just be able to put it in place. But it'll tell me where all my contact points are and all my spaces that need to be buttered up with adhesive. So let me finish off the last 3 lights here, and once I get that done, I can push it into the other side. Now it'll be the next thing you see. I'm tucking it through even as I speak. Okay, pardon the plotter in the background, but we've come to the critical stage. I glued everything in to the starboard side, and now I'm seeing this big old gap here on the port side when I come to squeeze the parts together. But I'm thinking I can make that match up. It's just going to be working the joint inch by inch. So I'm going to start here on the bottom where it's more or less seamless, and then work my way around to the top. And I think the only way to do it really is to just start laying in some CA and squeezing it together. So that's the long and short of it. Well, it was a mighty struggle, but I have got the 2 halves of the Delta Flyer pulled together, and of course got some clamps on it, because you can never have too many clamps. But I am letting this sit for a while. I don't know if there's any actual science behind it, but whenever I do any sort of abuse to a model like this, where I am having to pull and force 2 pieces together and kind of join them up, I like to let it sit for a while, to let the natural stresses of the plastic kind of refocus itself. So I'm gonna also take a break, because this kind of jangled my nerves while I was doing it, and let this sit for a while, and come back to it after I have put some template sets together. I apologize for the sound of the plotter in the background. It's just been one of those days where it's going to be a long time running. But I've got the tape off, I've got the supports off, I've got the clamps off, and the last bit of tape is coming off, but this went together pretty darn neatly. Now there's going to be some sanding, obviously, and some puttying and some filling, but I am by and large very happy with how well this went together. Very little, I mean, yeah, you had to use some pressure to hold it together, but it's not like I had to put it into a headlock or anything. It's looking pretty good, and by the time I get this frame on here, it's going to take care of any of the unevenness that you might see. There's a little bit of gaposis going on here that I think I can run a file across to take care of. My biggest concern at this point is not getting a bunch of dust inside this interior that's going to be, too hard to clean out. But that's the thing about these printable resins, is that they're fairly, they can be brittle, but they sand down pretty easily. They're not hard to work with. So I'm going to continue doing some of this, and we'll carry this on into the morning, and we'll start doing some bodywork and painting tomorrow. Let me see if I can. Yeah, let me see if I can do this. This might cheer you up. I know it always does for me, and that is seeing. Let me make sure I get the right one. Seeing how everything looks with the lights on. We got this one. We got I did all this work today, and I almost completely forgot I had a ramp. The back gate door. This guy, I hadn't done anything with it yet, so that was embarrassing. It's always embarrassing when you're not as far along as you think, or you're not as far along as you think you are. You think you're a lot more done than you are. So let's plug this in. Oh yeah, look at all the lights. Look at all the colors. So many pretty colors. The greens are in the right spot. That's the green on the back. That's going to, I'm going to put this, oh yeah, look at that. But we've got all of our warp engines working. We've got our impulse engines working. We've got our interior lights lighting. And we put that in. Oh, yeah. All is well. All is well, my friends. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It is Thursday, the gateway to the weekend, and work is continuing on the Delta Flyer. I've got the wiring fed through the landing feet here and down and ready to go through the base. And it strikes me how close this is going to be to the ground. So my concern is I really don't need to worry too much about the state of the bottom of the shuttle, because it's going to be nailed down to a base, and therefore you're never really going to see it. So I'm going to do some attempt at painting it nice, but I'm really not going to sweat this big old seam through the bottom, because you're never going to see it. I am going to be concentrating on making this front end nice, and of course making it nice around the back gate, because you are going to see that. But this crease through the center you're never really going to see, so I'll paint it up, sand it a little bit, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over how it looks. Deciding what kind of base to put it on, it's more natural for me to want to get some, get a slab of wood and put some of that landscape or the model railroad turf on it. Some bright color, because this is white, and it's the lights are very nice on it. There's two ways to go. I could either make it look like the base look like the floor of a shuttle bay, or the just something natural, like with grass and rocks and stuff like that, like I do all my other shuttles. So I think what I'm going to do is decide that point later. But I can start masking off some areas and get the base coat of white on this. I'm debating whether or not to leave this removable so that you can see in there. There's a it works either way, as far as I think you'll be able to see in enough through the big windows that I don't really need to make this removable. but we'll decide that later as well. But I need to guard this to keep it safe from getting paint on it while I'm doing the rest of the painting. Plus I need to mask off the areas that will be lit. So that's going to be job one for today, is getting the areas masked and then get the first coat of white on here. We're coming up on the weekend. Am I going to get this done this weekend? I don't know. It's going to depend on how much time the order takes to get out, because, as I've always said, the orders take precedence. And that's where we are. I'm fitting the last two pieces on the top of the Delta Flyer, and I have to say sacrifices had to be made. This is such a complicated piece, and it is so prone to all of the changing geometry in here that I lost a side. I lost a side of the support. I have to tell you, Keith, I don't know whether it is worth keeping these. I think maybe those should be better placed in the bottom tub. If you put those in as walls and glued them in that way, and then just sat this on the top, because not only do you have to navigate these into these pegs, but then you also have to fit this complicated arrangement here and make sure that it's working out right. I know it's designed for people who want to lift off the top and look inside, but I really think that the windows are such that you will get 90% of your enjoyment with that closed and still be able to see what's going on in here. Let me light up the interior and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, this is with the top down, obviously, but you can still see in there. If you light up that warp core and then you put that one cabin light in there, you can still see plenty of what's going on without without taking the top off. So I don't know how much more getting the top off gets you. And if I threw even one more light back here, it would definitely spark up enough interest that you could see what was going on. That you don't really need to take this top off, unless you're just, marveling at your work and want to be able to see it. I would rather have it down and where I can put a seam around that to seal it off really well. I am debating not putting the window glass in, though. I'll have to see how that looks, because that might well, no, I could easily put the window glass in, because that's going to be glued in from the inside, and it does, if you're not taking the top off, you can make it as sloppy as you need to, and still it'll still work. My only concern is, of course, masking all of these weird windows. Oh, come on. Oh, that's... I gave myself a shock. I was wondering how come this side wasn't lit. It's because I only have the one connection going to this side. Okay, it's early. It's early on a Thursday morning. But I also overestimated. I think I shoved the cockpit in a little bit too far on this side, and I'm not coming all the way out to the edge on that side. Well, you saw the clamps from yesterday, so it's not exactly in the center of the cockpit. So what the upshot of that is I've kept the small monitor on this side. Let's back it up a little bit. I was able to keep the small monitor on this side, but the small monitor on this side was a goner, because it's now actually under the lip there. So that'll be your good alignment pin for people who aren't as in a rush as I am to cover this thing up. So if I paint this framework real nice and get that done, and then I put the windows in from the inside, and then cover the whole thing from the outside, then I should be able to go ahead and paint the white on there. So that's my goal. I need to do a quick inventory to make sure I've got the right color of brown for that. This is looking nice back here, by the way. What I plan on doing is masking small areas of this piece, and then painting it, and then revealing the green glow, so it doesn't have to be quite as bright as some of the rest of this. These ones ended up being in just the right spot Yes. I think everything's working out well. I just need to figure out the proper order of things. Last note before I go on to doing other stuff. This joint right here, this zigzag right here, probably the most difficult thing to get to line up correctly. That right there. I don't know, Keith, if in your next run you may want to make this piece here a separate add-on so that you can put everything down and then glue this piece down at the last bit. But getting it to match the contours of this to this exactly once everything is together is kind of a bear. So something to put in your toolbox and maybe think about. I'm going to have to lay in some putty in there to fill in that gap once everything here is pushed down. So just making this last piece an add-on might alleviate that. I know it's like every time I get a resin printed kit like this, it's like I wish it were more pieces. Well, more pieces gives you more flexibility. If it's two pieces and you put those two pieces together, there's only really one way it can go. But if you have more latitude with a larger number of pieces, then you can, you know, stretch something or fudge something or twist or bend something to make it fit. And that's always a benefit when you're working on a kit. So I'm always an advocate for, if you can make more pieces, make it out of more pieces. Big doing since the last time I checked in. I've got a coat of white, or actually several light coats of white primer on the whole ship, and I've got this area masked off, but still everything in here is nice and clean. Now this white is not the final color. Oh no, that would be too simple. The white that I'm going to use on this is actually going to be slightly off-white, but it's so much easier to paint that over the white primer than it is to try to, you know, get that from the ground up over the gray primer. So white primer, and I still have to decide about blocking that, and I think that's going to have to happen even after. I might have to glue that down and then paint the white over it, but all of my details have been masked, so they're ready to be painted back out. And good, we're going to let this dry for a bit and then start the top coat. Okay, now before I put this away for the evening, I wanted to show you one last thing. I have put a base coat over the white sandable primer. I don't know why I keep calling it sandable primer. It's white primer. Of course you can sand it. You can sand anything. This is America. But I put a coat of what they recommend, which is an off-white. This is the Mecca off-white. And it's coming out a little bit yellow, a little bit creamy. Yellow is too strong of a word. It's a little creamier than I would like, but it's not completely out of the realm of the color scheme of the rest of the ship. So what I think I'm going to do is leave this as my base color and then maybe put some whiter highlights, for lack of a better term. Just do a white overpass on it and leave this off-white in the seams and recesses and all of that. And then we'll be ready to paint the detail stuff in tomorrow. Welcome back. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and I find myself in that precarious position. I'm close to being, well, this is where we are. I'm going to say I'm close to being done, but this is where we are. And I'm at the stage, I always look at myself on Fridays and I say, is there enough work here that I can get done today, or would I be rushing it? So basically what I'm going to do is punt the ball down the field. I'm going to do my work on this. I'm going to continue to work on it, and we're going to see where the day takes us. It's entirely possible that we will not finish this today, because Lord knows I still haven't put any decals or painted any of the detail painting on it. It's in very good shape for that. I mean, we're ready to go with that, but it's just we'll see. Now, yesterday, the last thing I did was put the coat of the off-white on it, which warmed it up. It made it a little creamier, a little bit more ivory. And then today, what I've done this morning is gone back over it with a stark white just your basic Tamiya flat white, and just hit some of the highlights, not plastering it all over, not soaking it in the white, but just enough to knock down that ivory, the eggshell. It's more of an eggshell. It's a semi-satin eggshell color right now. It's not as white as it may look on camera, but it's certainly not as creamy yellowish as it was yesterday. Can you tell I watched too much home improvement programming? But here's the thing: there are two questions I wish to answer at this point that people have asked, perfectly reasonable questions they've asked about this 3D printed model. A, can you see the 3D printing marks in it? Yes, you can. And B, is it faceted or high resolution, or how smooth is the hull? Basically, it comes to that, down to that. How smooth is the hull, the geometry of the hull, and can I see the striations, or what I used to call the wood grain, from the 3D printing? And it's the smoothness is very good, but it's still noticeable. And yes, you can see it, particularly, well, in some parts more than others, but you can see the 3D printing marks, the striations from the layers. Now, were I a different person, I could have gone in with a more aggressive sandpaper and a sanding block and just, rode this all day like a rented mule and smoothed everything out. But there's one thing stopping me. Well, there's two things stopping me from doing that. One is everything that is sticking up out of the hull, and the other thing is everything that is cut into the hull. Now, these indents, these score lines, yes, you could sand and then rescore. That's a thing. But these raised details, if I were going into sanding this, aggressively with a sanding block, I would have to stop, at some point around these raised details for the fear of, just sanding those down to nothing, which would leave you an odd bit of, okay, we're smooth up to here and then we stop. And then we're smooth over here and then we stop. So I felt that leaving it more or less in its native state was better than trying to do all of this smoothing down and all of that, where I'd have to stop before I got to any detail, and make that, it would call out the unevenness even more than just leaving it alone. Now, there were areas where I could smooth it down. On this nose, there is no raised detail or lowered detail around that. So yeah, I could sand that down. The back end is the same way. So in areas where I could, without compromising the look, I did sand it. But just like in any other model, you're going to see some seam work if you don't work at it. I wish that people who 3D printed kits would study more of commercial models, how they come out and how they're presented, because if this were a commercial model from round 2, say, I can almost bet you that these phaser strips would be add-on parts. These flaps here would be add-on parts. Anything that stuck out from the hull would be an add-on part. And then that would allow you to really go in and smooth that and then add those parts back to the top. But that's not the way this is presented. Those are printed in, and therefore you have to work around them. Now, the other question I get is, can you see the build lines? And yes, you can. In some parts, it's more noticeable than others. I'm not concerned about the inside of the back gate here, because it's going to be hidden. The back gate will be down, so it's going to be tough to see that. So I'm not as worried about that. There are a lot of noticeable build lines along the bottom here. But again, since this is going to be sitting on a base, you're not going to see that. I'm very much a student of the philosophy, if it doesn't show, it doesn't glow. If it doesn't show, I'm not going to stress over cleaning every little bit of it, excuse me, every little bit of it up. I'm sorry, I got a frog in my throat and he was getting ready to croak. So we are to the point now where I'm going to start painting in these detail parts And once the detail parts are painted, then everything gets a gloss, then it gets decals, and then it gets a flat coat. And a flat coat will help. The gloss coat will make every little facet jump up. I sprayed this piece with a gloss, and you can see it looks like a diamond. It's got so many facets in it. But the one that's on here with the flat coat doesn't look nearly as obvious. So the flat coat will help. I still have to figure out exactly what kind of base I'm going to put this on. And I might have to run out to the big box store and get a wood block to put that base on. So there is plenty of opportunity here, is what I'm saying, for things to do today. And I need to get started on it. Well, you know, it's always great when I can add something to the display room, something that's been not a grail item, but something that I've always wanted to have. You know, it's not something I'll die without, but something I've always wanted to have. And I got to add something else to let me switch hands here, to the bucket list of things I've always wanted. And here he is. Say hello to my little friend. This is a Planet of the Apes mask, obviously, if you can't tell that. What the hell are you doing on my channel? Done by the one, the only Steve Neal. Steve Neal offers these masks in his store now. And if you've got the shekels that you can afford one, I highly recommend it. It's very high quality latex. It ain't going to rot out anytime soon. It's not silicone. It's not... oh, shut up, you damn dirty compressor. But it's a half mask. Basically, what you do is you get a black wig, and then you put this on in front of you. You could wear it. He makes an option that has no eyes in it. So if you wanted to glue it to your actual face, you could. I chose not to go that way because I just wanted a display. And for those people who don't know, Steve got his start. Well, the original Planet of the Apes movies were a big inspiration for him, as they were for a generation of special effects makeup artists. But he actually got to work on the TV series of Planet of the Apes, and got to work with Mr. McDowell and the like, and Mark Leonard, who was the guerrilla general after he was done being Sarek. But he worked on that show, and I kind of been pestering him for years to not that I have any special pull, but it's like, Steve, Planet of the Apes mask, do that, because he's been getting into masks lately, and I've got a few of his. I've got the Salt Vampire, and I've gotten the Baylock that he made, but he decided to make these masks available, and as a display piece, you can't get any better than that. I just love the detail. I'm always amazed by how small things are. I mean, yeah, that's a human face, that's a human-sized head, but you know, you always think of them as being much larger than that. He's a little bit wall-eyed. He's a little bit, you know, he's got the Queen's Gambit thing going on there, but I'm just chuffed. I'm tickled pink. I'm gone ape for it. But now this is going to find an honored place on in the display room. I just need to figure out exactly where. You know, finding places, that's the easy thing. You make room for the things that you really want to have. But I thought I would break into my Delta Flyer build for a little monkey business. So there you go. That's all of the ape puns I'm going to make, I swear. I made the joke earlier about putting the shuttle together with Gorilla Glue. But okay, I think I've got the ship ready for a gloss coat on the top here, so that I can, or a gloss coat on both sides, so that I can get the decals down. Still have this area taped off, and I have not glued this down yet at all. I really want to wait to do that, maybe to the final bit, if ever. So I will just leave that as it is. But we're going to see how this looks after we put the gloss coat on. I've scratched up the red lenses there, just in the normal course of model building and sanding and things like that. I'm hoping that the clear coat, the gloss coat, will bring that back to a gloss, but even after I flat coat everything when I'm done with it, I probably still will come back in and paint a high gloss coat, or a coat of gloss clear over those. So I'm not really worried about how they're looking at this point. But if they don't straighten up soon, then we'll worry. I've scratched in some lines into the paint here so that the green glow will come out. I probably will put a black wash over that later, or maybe a gunmetal wash to darken that down. But really, I think I'm to the point where everything is done except for the decaling. I don't know where you are when inspiration strikes you, but I was in the shower, and all of a sudden in my head I saw this complete base. And it's not going to be the outdoors grass and rock type of base I normally use for shuttles. This is going to be a shuttle bay floor, and I saw it all in my head at one time. What I'm going to do is I had to run out to the store to pick up some supplies for it, as a matter of fact. I'm going to thicken it up this much so that I can raise it up, and then this is going to be a cutout. And this cutout is going to have caution tape on it, you know, the black and yellow stripy tape. And then I can hide my jack for power and my switch over on the back side. So what I want to go ahead and do is run out and get these guys measured off, cut them up, and start gluing them down. Alrighty, I just put a quick simple little wooden frame around the bottom side of the base. This is the underside. There'll be 2 holes I need to drill in here to accept the wiring. The jack will go out through here and get stuck in that hole there, and I still need to find a place to hide the switch. I may put the switch sticking up through the floor, who knows. So we're going to let this dry, and then I might have time to put a decal or 2 on today. Okay, we're coming down on the end of Friday afternoon, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get a lot done. I'm going to put 1 ceremonial decal on just to show that I can. And I think it's going to be the big old boomerang here. And it's going to go around the area here. So let's get that cut out. And we'll put that one down. And we'll see, you know, it's like eating potato chips. You put one decal down, then you want to put the next one down. So we'll see how many of these I can do. Okay, so I put down a couple of the showier decals. The dashboard decal, the one that goes right under around here, and then this front area. Looking pretty good. It's interesting. It's astounding, actually, to me, that this horseshoe decal fits as well as it does, given the contour that it has to wrap around it. And it was I didn't cut it into smaller pieces. I could have split it in the middle and made it fit a little better, but it's got a nameplate right in the front that I didn't want to cut into. But when you put the window frame back over top of it, everything seems to line up pretty darn good. So I think what I'd like to do is let's see, I can get a few more decals on. Like I say, it's like eating potato chips. You just don't want to stop. Okay, so here you go. Now certainly I've got a few days worth of work left to do before it's completely finished. Certainly I have to finish the base, but I've got to add the back hatch and the ladder and some other details to it before it's completely done, and then we'll have a finished thing. But look at that. I went ahead and went nuts on the decals. I've got almost all of them down except for those tiny half moon things around the phaser strips that I'm not going to use, and some other knick-knacky little ones. I have not yet decided, like I said, whether to glue this piece down. I should. I probably will. I just haven't made that decision yet. Got to put the clear window in, but maybe we can see inside all of the nice features that are going on inside the cockpit there. That's looking pretty sweet. Certainly can touch up some of the painting now that I have really stepped into some stuff with getting it inside and getting the sides nailed together. It scuffed some paint here and there that I need to touch up. I'm seeing a lot of gap right down the sides in here that I'm wondering if there's any percentage in trying to block that off. But once these are in place, you don't really see that. Yeah, you don't really see down those sides. I like what's happening back here, which is the board portion. Oops. And of course, I've got some light blocking on these impulse engines. Maybe I better move the camera instead of the model here. I like what's happening here, but I can see more light blocking that's going to be needed. I like the little the way the green is shining through there. Big area of light blocking needed here. But yeah, the warp engines look good. It certainly looks good sitting on the base. Now, as I've said, I've not done anything in regards to putting the back hatch in place and putting that ladder down that goes on the side of it. That's certainly something that can be done next week. But there you go. And that is going to bring us to the end of week 2 on the Delta Flyer build. Didn't quite finish it in 2 weeks. We'll pick it up again next week. Maybe we'll make a half week out of it and finish it off in half week. Who knows? Depends on how much fight this base gives me. I've got an idea for it, but you know, somewhere between the idea and the execution is always a fun place to live, because it never quite goes the way you'd hope. So until next week, when we will be finishing this up, certainly the next time you see me, you be good to each other, be safe, be smart, get your shot if it's available to you, and we'll see you here next time.